Hello, and welcome to Make a Difference, the show about how volunteers are making a difference every day right here in Montgomery County. I'm your host, Sandy Smith, and we welcome you here once again via Zoom. It's that time of year again, time to send those kids off to school. We welcome back Donna Kleffman, Instructional Specialist, Student Leadership and Extracurricular Activities with Montgomery County Public Schools. Welcome back, Donna.
Thank you, Sandy. It's very nice to be here with you today.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. One of the requirements for graduation here in Montgomery County is completing a certain number of SSL hours. Give us the details.
Yes, so it's a state graduation requirement that every student in the state of Maryland has to earn 75 SSL hours to graduate from high school. So here in Montgomery County Public Schools, we work with our students and staff to ensure that our students have opportunities available to them so that they can meet that state graduation requirement.
So this is really important. It's very serious. How would they find out how many hours they've already completed, and therefore how many hours they need to complete the requirement?
Great question. So students and families can check their students' SSL records on Student and Parent View. We do have a set of directions for students and families to help them navigate where in Student and Parent View they can go to look up their record. But there they can see how many hours they have earned. They can see whether they've met that 75-hour requirement. And then they can also toggle on a screen to be able to see the full details of their SSL record so that they can check to see which hours have been already recorded, what organizations they've worked with in the past, and make sure that their record is clean and up to date.
Okay, that's great to know. So how do they find opportunities and resources to complete these hours?
So thank you for asking that, because it is something that we work very hard on to make sure that our students and families have access to all of the resources and don't have to hunt around to figure out where they can find out information. So last year, we actually launched an SSL hub for students and families, so that students and families can see exactly where they can find SSL opportunities, the SSL forms that they need to turn in, the name of their school's SSL coordinator, and the process for submitting those forms, all of our due dates and deadlines. We have materials that are translated into every major language, into the 8 major languages that we translate for students and families within Montgomery County Public Schools. So a ton of resources there. Also in that hub, we have links directly to the Montgomery County Volunteer Center website, where students can look up opportunities that they can complete either in person or even some select virtual opportunities that they can complete from home.
Okay, great. And so what if they're in school and let's say they're on sports teams or other organizations within the school? How do they go about finding out if these things are considered SSL hours? Is there a location they can go to inside the school that could give them more information?
Yes, absolutely. So every middle school and high school has an SSL coordinator.
Okay.
And that coordinator has access to all of the information for what qualifies for SSL, which organizations host SSL opportunities. Any MCPS staff member that has a student volunteer helping with them before school, during lunch, after school, they can offer SSL hours to students for that work. We have lots of school teams and clubs that do service together after school. So if they run a collection drive together, or they're working on creating some advocacy materials and they meet together with a staff supervisor, they can earn SSL hours for that time as well. And that SSL coordinator will have knowledge of what's happening within the school building, but then also will be able to help the students kind of sort through the Volunteer Center website, all of the opportunities hosted by our nonprofit partners. We have over 1,000 nonprofit partners within Montgomery County. Yep. So there's definitely places that students can find that's close to them for them to go and serve and earn those hours.
Sometimes students they do nonprofit or volunteer work at their churches or synagogues or whatever religious affiliations. Can they still get credit for those hours? And how do you go about getting them or submitting them?
Great question. So many of our nonprofit partners are religious organizations. We know that there are many students who come together within a youth group or a club within their religious organization, and they go and they serve together. As long as the service activities are entirely secular and non-religious in nature, and they meet a wider community need. So it's not service that is solely benefiting the congregation itself or those who come to participate in religious services. The need needs to address a community needs. It needs to be open to the wider community and benefit that general population. Then students can absolutely earn SSL hours for their service in conjunction with that religious organization. So for example, we have a lot of religious organizations that host food pantries or clothes closets on site. And students who come and help with that service, they can earn SSL hours for that time. We also have a ton of religious organizations who take groups of students out and they go to a soup kitchen or a shelter and they help out there. As a group, they're being supervised by the religious organization itself, but they're working in partnership with another community organization, nonprofit, that is serving a wider community in need.
Okay, great. You mentioned earlier that there are still virtual opportunities available. Are there a lot? And I know previously at the height of COVID, the county had waived a few hours, shaved a few hours off of the requirement. That's done. That's completely done now, right? So it's the maximum 75, I mean, not maximum, but at least minimums of 75 hours. But can they still do virtual work? Because sometimes some people or their parents may not feel comfortable with them being in person yet.
So during the pandemic, you're correct. There were 2 graduating classes that had their SSL requirement waived because of the nature of public safety and health. The State Department did decide to waive that graduation requirement for those 2 graduating classes. But that is no longer the case. The State Department has not made any announcements, nor do we anticipate that they will make any announcements saying that they're waiving the requirement. So the requirement is in place for this school year. It was also in place for last school year as well. You know, during the pandemic, we recognized that it was not safe for our students to go out into the community to serve. You know, we had some very strict conditions in place at the state level and at the county level. And so we did not encourage students to go out and serve within the community. Right. And as a result, we still needed to give them access to service learning opportunities. So we resurrected and created what we thought were going to be temporary guidelines for virtual remote service, right? So that the students could do something from their home, be safe while they're doing it, but still help the communities that were most in need. What we found was the feedback we got from students and families, from our nonprofit partners, from just community members, was that there is a ton of work that students can do, that they can do from home with remote supervision of a nonprofit or a staff member, as long as the student is doing something, they're creating something, right? They're spending time at home to create something, and they're basically turning it over to the nonprofit organization to say, you know, look, this is something I've built, whether it be a social media post that they've created, whether it be a letter or a card, that an encouraging note that they're writing, whether they're baking casseroles or making sandwiches, right? This is something that I've made that I'm going to turn over to you as a nonprofit organization for you to then distribute to that community in need, right? And then the nonprofit on the other side can kind of determine what is it that the students are submitting to them, what is it that they need that the students can create, how are they going to review that submission to make sure students have spent quality time on it, and then they can award SSL hours based on a reasonable equivalency that is approved by our office ahead of time, so that it's very clear to both the students and the nonprofits exactly how much time should be spent on that service project at home.
Where can students find these virtual opportunities? At the same hub?
Yes, so the hub does have a link to the Volunteer Center website with all of those opportunities. We have also created a list of bit.ly links that are super helpful for students as well. Just quick links for students to be able to get to different opportunities and our SSL forms. And one more piece I will mention is that if students choose to serve with a nonprofit organization or a religious organization that is not listed on the Volunteer Center website, we do have a pre-approval form.
Oh, okay.
All
And
students.
that form is available also on through the hub or on the volunteer website.
Yes, absolutely. And those students who want to serve with another organization, we encourage them to do so, but we want to make sure that the service that they're completing and the organization that they're completing it with do meet those SSL requirements as a state graduation requirement. So we don't want students to go serving with an organization thinking they're going to earn SSL hours, only to find out later that it didn't qualify. So that pre-approval process allows us to review it prior to service to be able to inform the student as to whether that's going to count for SSL hours or not.
That's great to know, because I do know kids that's happened to, where they thought they were receiving SSL hours, but the organization was not a partner. So, and didn't qualify to have them receive SSL hours. So where do the students report their hours? Where and how do the students report their hours?
So the other form that we have is the SSL activity verification form. And that form is widely available, but you can find it on our hub as well. The SSL coordinators in each building will also have copies of that form. But the student essentially would go and serve with an organization as long as it's listed on the Volunteer Center website or they've received pre-approval, they can go serve. At the end of their service, they should have the nonprofit complete section 2 of that form, describing the service that they completed, the number of hours that they earned, and then signing off to verify those hours. The student then completes section 1, which is basically their student information, and section 3, which is the required reflection. The students have to complete a written reflection after each service opportunity, and then they turn that fully completed form into their school's SSL coordinator. Now, every school has a different process for
That's what I was going to ask about.
So the students should always find out who their SSL coordinator is. That list is also in our hub so that they can easily access that information and figure out, communicate with that SSL coordinator to figure out what the process for submitting the forms in. Sometimes it's a, special mailbox that they have to drop the paper form in. Some of our schools are accepting electronic submissions of SSL forms. It really depends on the school and the student population and sort of what the school has worked out is best for their students.
Another thing I did not know was that different schools have different deadlines. They don't, for seniors, they don't all, or not even just for seniors, actually, for all the students. It's not just a one date thing across the county. Different schools have different deadline dates, correct?
Yes, so I'm so glad you asked about deadlines. We do have system-wide deadlines. So across the county, all of the SSL forms for students need to be turned in by the first Friday in June of that school year. So we do expect all of the forms be turned in for the school year by the first Friday in June. For this year, that's June 2nd. That is a required deadline. We need to have all of the forms in so our SSL coordinators have enough time to enter them before the school year ends. Throughout the year, we have rolling submission, basically, right? We encourage the students to turn in those forms as quickly as they can. We don't want them to get lost. We don't want them to get forgotten about. So as soon as you serve, you can turn your form in right away and your SSL coordinator will take it and process it. Our 2 recommended due dates, just to kind of encourage students to get those forms in as soon as possible, are September 23rd and January 6th. Those 2 dates are recommended. If students don't turn in the forms by that date, we will still accept the forms, but we do highly recommend that they turn them in so that we can report the hours before the marking period ends for both first quarter and second quarter.
Well, thank you, Donna. We've been speaking with Donna Kleffman. And as usual, Donna, you have been most informative. Thank you again for coming back and speaking with us. This information is crucial.
Yes, thank you, Sandy, for helping us get the word out. We're excited to work with our students this year.
If you're interested in volunteer opportunities, please go to our website, montgomeryserves.org. I'm your host, Sandy Smith. Thank you for joining us, and let's be sure to make a difference.